that we understand or we sort of innovate the way we are working. And this is something which is the need of the hour. That is something which I would probably, want to take you guys through. And let me spend some time on what we are going to take you through, and in terms of, what is the alternative financing options, which will be covered in detail by my other panelist. But what I will take you through this particular session is that how is it that we need to keep our business and finance strategies intact. So that is something which I'm going to quickly take you through. And there's a brief about me. I'm basically a practicing chartered accountant, but I specialize in transformation, assurance, technology, and that's where I found a huge amount of passion. Let me quickly head into the subject without much of delay. The first and foremost, which I would probably want you to take you through is, directly what are the strategies for my business. We all are aware that this time is one of its kind. Never in the history of mankind anybody has actually come across this thing. A virus which is invisible has kept all of us in our homes, has kept all of us grounded. Perhaps a lesson for us, all of us, to learn. A lot of things which we are actually coming across. Business will change, economy is impacted. The real question is, what happens to my business? Each of us run different styles of business, different nature, different types of number of employees dependent on you. So the real question is, how is this going to impact my business? So that is something which I'll probably get started with. And the first thing which I want to probably take you through is, need to understand what your business is. You must be wondering, why should I understand my business? Definitely you are the expert in business, but I think we all have to relook into the way we are working. First, are we a very, very basic check before I go into any further deliberation, etc., etc. The first real basic check which I need to do is, am I into the business of essential commodities and services? Now, the word essential commodity and services will keep on varying based on location, based upon the region, the demand, the consumption, the behavior, whole lot of these things. But you know those things best, because nobody can market your product better than you. So the first thing which we need to understand is, what is my line of business? Am I into food? And food is a very, very broad word, correct? I can talk about groceries, I can talk about ready to eat food, I can talk about instant, I can talk about masalas, or I can talk about meat, poultry, a whole lot of these things. And of course, the whole gambit of medicine and medical related, or maybe something relating to what has become a huge buzzword today, or huge requirement in terms of PPE, sanitizers, disinfectants, and a whole lot of these things. So first and foremost, I think, is you'll have to understand your business in detail. This is something which is very critical. Once you've understood this, and assuming you fall under the category of a non-essential supply, you may probably be a discretionary product, which means you are a product which people may feel good to have, but need not always have. That is the key message and the key distinction which we have to get started now. So if you fall under the first bucket, you have a market. The question is, how do you focus on, getting the supply chain work? If you are in the second, you may probably have the resources available, but the demand is a big question. You need to balance it out. And let's see how best we can be able to take you through this next few slides. The next very important, very crucial aspect which you have to look into it is, how is your supply chain? And this is very critical, because there are some set of people who have a linear supply chain, A, B, C, D, that's it. I have a manufacturer, then there's a wholesaler to probably a smaller wholesaler, and then finally it comes to you as a retailer, and you're sending it to the end consumer, or maybe you're manufacturing it and further. So you have to seriously understand where you fall into the supply chain. If you are in the manufacturer, and assess what is the problem in getting the raw material. Is the raw material adequately available? If the raw material is available, is my supplier or all these people intact? Or assuming even these people are there, I'm going to the next line of the story. When I go to the next line of the story, is my supply chain willing to, or rather, is my customers accepting my product? Is it a necessity of the day? A whole lot of these things will have to be assessed. Assuming you're into real estate, this is going to be a challenging time. because nobody is going to go ahead for a housing based solution, at least for the immediate short term. But what is it that they will definitely go? You can think through on alternate methods, which I'll probably take you through industry specific. I'll give you a few examples. Second is a method of supply chain called as the network, where it goes to B, B goes to C, C goes to D, D goes to X, comes to back to Y, and then it comes to you. You know, it's a mixed. It's not a linear. It's not a straight. There are multiple players involved. And these sort of supply chains have got huge amount of risk, especially you're bringing in products. The products is going to so many channels, correct? And every time this product goes through, if it is stuck somewhere from there to here, is going to be a big challenge. And today, transportation is one major issue. I'm not sure how many of them have, noted it. Many of these very, very large players, including the MSMEs, including the large MNCs, beg your pardon, the MNCs, they have huge amount of stock with them, but they are not able to push it out. I remember reading a news article where a noodles manufacturer, he said, I have enough stock of noodles to supply to entire India, but I'm not able to push it through. So these are interesting challenges which we are looking into. The third thing which you should, the fourth thing we should rather spend some time to understand is, am I into a product or am I into a service? Very critical exercise. Now, this will ensure that what type of service you are dealing with, whom are you going to deal with, and how is it that you're going to render the services on this facility. When you're into a product, a whole lot of manufacturing setup is necessary. When you're into a service, may not be. You may still have the provision or the flexibility of working from home, unless your service requires that sort of a dedicated workforce place, etc. Then the next thing which you have to look into is capacity plan. Most of us are aware that none of the businesses in India work on 100% capacity for various reasons. Because if you have to work on 100% capacity, there should be demand for it. And today we are talking about an era where demand itself is sort of, become very, very low for the next, and it's expected to be that way. So the real question is, how do I plan my capacity? How do I try to assess that? And that is where, my dear friends, I think you should focus on understanding what should be my capacity at which I would manufacture. Do I just go with 30%? Do I just go with 40%? Understand my fixed costs and other things. Then a very important message, I seriously have to look into the geography of my business. When I use the word geography, I'm referring to two things. One is the place where I'm manufacturing. Second is the place where I'm going to sell. Today, your products, if it is of good QC checks and of good standard, the world is very happy to accept products. People are seriously looking into alternatives outside a few countries. This is going to open up new trade possibilities, which means you have a whole new market to cater. But let's say on the flip side, do I have the number of people required to manufacture? And today we all know, as a country, we are facing a major issue, and that's the issue of migrant labor. So can I shift my production base from the place where I am to a place where the migrant labor is actually residing? These are new strategies which you have to look into, because the way people are going to come forward, for various reasons, the labor has lost to some extent confidence in coming back to industry or coming back to the cities and urban areas. So when people cannot come to urban, can we as a setup go into the rural market? And that is where I think we have to seriously look into. So these are the questions which business owners should ask themselves and see how best they can try to address. This is the first part where I'm trying to say you need to reassess your business. The second piece of the cake is need to spend time in analyzing cost. Not too sure how many of them have had the liberty or had exercised the freedom or perhaps made it deliberate to go through your typical cost sheet or your balance sheet and P&L account. Do not look into profitability or a cash flow and just say, hey, you know what, I'm profitable, I have cash rich and I'm going ahead, or I'm deficit. No, I think it's time we try to assess each and every type of cost. And what are the broad type of costs? We have what is called as the direct cost, which is your material, labor, expenses such as power, fuel, various things which are absolutely essential for the product to come into existence. Of course, if you're in the service sector, probably you might have majorly is only to do with, labor. When it comes to indirect cost, a whole lot of these things, what is popularly called as overheads, is actually being used. Not sure how many cases many of the firms are actually finding it extremely difficult to just meet the indirect costs such as rent. Interest is becoming a burden. I have a whole lot of these non-cash expenditure amortization, but the only consoling factor is that it is non-cash, so I can be fairly safer, but it's going to be impacting my profit. And this is where a very simple exercise we need to keep in mind, and that is called the knowledge of understanding what your contribution is. A contribution in the terms of an academic perspective is the amount which you have earned, sales minus your variable cost. The amount which you have earned, which is basically sales as reduced by your variable inputs or variable costs. That surplus, if you have, is that surplus enough to recover your fixed cost? If that surplus is able to recover the fixed cost, my dear friends, we are in profitable position. But today's reality is I do not have the funds or I do not have the resources to recover that surplus. Forget about surplus. Am I at least able to meet my fixed costs? And if the answer is yes, there you have your solution, or there you have your optimum production quantity. Try to focus in such a way where your production quantity or your production value or your supply, your sales, whatever it is, at least bare minimum is trying to focus on your fixed cost. In fact, a little later probably I'll be covering in those in detail, but I think it's time we should convert these fixed costs into variable costs. Probably speak to your landlord saying that, rent, I cannot pay a fixed commitment. Give me a flexibility. I'm going to give you based on my output, based on my production. This is a classical thing which you can do, especially restaurants, highly recommended. Because today, of course, it's subject to you and your landlord coming into consensus. There's a whole lot of new things to be coming to picture. But I think we need to seriously reassess, can my fixed costs be pushed into variable costs? If my fixed cost is being pushed into variable cost, I have a whole possibility of ensuring that my cost to some extent is recovered. Because fixed cost, basically what happens is, come what may, you are forced to pay, whereas a variable cost is purely based on output and certain other factors. At the same time, one very important strategy for MSMEs is that a whole lot of these MSMEs are actually using their own personal assets for the business. Many a times, these personal assets are not recorded as business assets. Many a times, they are not considered as a capital investment. I think you have to relook into it. Can I bring in those assets as a capital? Can I bring in those to enhance my net worth? And the advantage is, if you are able to show a higher net worth, higher capital, the possibility of you getting a loan is obviously going to increase, or your financing is going to increase. So that's another interesting. Next interesting thing which you have to look into when it comes to cost is, can I make this product, or is it cheaper for me to buy this product? It is okay if your business is getting downsized. You have to survive today. Profitability is a luxury in today's market. The most important thing today is survival. If you're able to survive for the next 3 months to 6 months, or perhaps over a year, I'm sure the future is very, very bright. But it's only that question of the transition between this phase to the next phase that is what is basically a very a questionable thing. So trying to reassess, can I make it instead of buying it? Is it going to be fairly cheaper? Or let's take another reverse scenario. Does it makes a lot of sense for me to buy instead of me just making it? You need to look into a lot more factors. If you're trying to bring in goods from various places, you may have travel restrictions, state to state restrictions, district to district restrictions. My goodness, correct? On the other end, can I do these works in-house versus outsource? Now, typically a job work, I'm giving it to somebody to get it done. Can I get it done by myself? I remember cases where, you were in a particular state, you used to export it, or rather, export it from a GST angle, or rather from a state, you used to push it to another state. From there, you used to get the work fabricated, modified, job work done. And from there, it used to move to a third state. So you can see managing moving goods within a city itself is becoming difficult. How do I manage to take it through multiple states? Which means you need to figure out, are there alternative options available? And this is going to become a key important aspect, and understand whether do you have alternative options. Next, look into your budgets. I think this is something which you have to critically examine. Our budgets, unfortunately, are being made once upon a time pre-COVID era, and in fact, today we are going to look into three eras: before COVID, which is BC; DC during COVID, which is where we are; and AD after death of COVID, correct? Or probably ADC. That's the era which we are going to look into. So how do I manage my BC era will no longer work during DC and AD during COVID and after death. I need to reassess these items. So probably look into budget, start from scratch, zero-based budgeting techniques. All these things have to be looked into. Do not forget to include the cost, or your cleanliness, your sanitization cost, your loss of productive hours. Earlier you thought that out of 8 hours of a labor work, probably 7 hours or 6 hours were productive. Today that's not going to be the case. You are going to have loss of productivity because you're going to have social distancing, you're going to have a whole lot of these precautionary measures, scanning, precaution, cleanliness. A whole lot of these things are going to change. In fact, it is recommended after every shift you need to sort of sanitize these equipments. So these are all going to be increased costs. So these are all going to become your normal costs or your normal expenses or your normal losses. You need to some extent transfer this burden to the end consumer. Let's look on the very important principle: conserving cash. Conserving cash, the need and importance of cash has never been understood as better than this situation. Liquidity has become a most important thing across the value chain. You feel that you need to have more and more liquid funds, which is fantastic, which is agreeable because you need to meet your expenses. But on the other end, by just merely holding cash, your supplier is going to be impacted, and likewise the entire chain is going to be impacted. While I understand there is going to be a significant amount of time, but what we should definitely look into is try to optimize my working capital. Can I go for a reduced inventory? Can I sort of dispose of all these inventory, buy minimal inventory only? Can I avoid stocking up? Can I defer my payments to the payables so that my working capital is enhanced? Or perhaps can I have shorter working capital cycles so that I tell everybody, hey, you know what, within 10 days I'm going to receive from my customer, within 10 days we're going to do that. And many times what we as MSMEs probably fail to notice is the operation cycle. My debtor may probably give me within a span of 60 days, whereas I have to pay to my creditor in 45 days or maybe even 90 days. Can I bring a uniform standard? 15 days, 20 days, this is the price, this is the cash discount. I think cash discount is going to be a major difference. Renegotiate with your vendors, renegotiate with the partners, especially discretionary spends. I think we'll have to relook into it. Reduce or sometimes increase the batch size so that you can achieve an optimum cost, and you have to do a whole lot of these trial and error. Perhaps consider taking these interesting benefits which the government has given, in terms of MSME loans, in terms of schemes, payments, deferments, etc. And I think the government recently clarified, if you have any outstanding with public sector units, etc., those are going to be cleared within a period of 45 days. Up to 200 crore worth of procurement is going to be given priority for MSMEs. All these things are going to be no doubt going to be beneficial, but it's going to take some time. So I think we need to focus on short-term strategies. At the same time, probably relook into my marketing strategy, because I used to spend a whole lot of these money in terms of marketing. Can I convert my marketing into a variable based model, a distribution based model, a network sort of a based model, where people refer my products, where companies refer my products, where your workforce or your employees refer your products? Or forget that, can the so-called migrant laborers who are sitting somewhere else, can they market your product? These are all interesting things. You would be surprised, for this BFSI industry requires a lot of these people's agents who can refer it to the banking and banking sector. I was told in the last 3 months, or the last 3 weeks, the number of agents who have registered with themselves for referring these, various innovative products, and referring to banks, and sort of getting a commission out of them, has increased 3 to 4 times. Why? Because a whole lot of these migrant labor are gone into those places and they do not want to come back for various reasons. So now comes an interesting question. Can I now ensure my rural capacity, rural demand is enhanced? How do I bring in more liquidity? How do I pump in more number of goods? Can they act as my marketing agents? These are all things which we'll probably look into it. The next very important strategy, the need to be digital. In fact, this COVID-19, you would agree, has clearly separated two, the men from the boys. It's clear indication that those who have a robust technology-based systems are able to survive. While I understand that not everything can be driven through technology, there is a necessity for manual, there is a necessity for people to be there, but an attempt I think we should seriously start. Start from your basics, accounting, inventory, processes, your operational work, whatever it is, try to bring in digital. I understand work from home is not an option for everybody. In fact, we will discuss about work from home strategies and people management. Enhance your online presence. I think that's very critical. Try to make the best use of social media. There are a whole lot of these portals available where you can market your product. I'm not sure how many of them are aware. The government of India itself has got 3 to 4 MSME marketing platforms. Just visit MSME India website. You will find a whole lot of these initiatives. Probably, from starting from marketing, so starting from networking, starting from a data bank, searching, all of these are actually there. Next, see how best you can actually adapt and adopt to e-commerce. This is the reality of today. And I'm sure you have read at least about 3 to 4 weeks back, or maybe a little lesser than a month, you would have read that Facebook has planned to put in a strategic investment into Geo. Now, this is going to change the whole way the e-commerce B2B is going to work, because WhatsApp will very soon come up with a payment license. In fact, their application is already pending with RBI. A newer model will come into picture where e-commerce, local commerce, all of these are going to come into picture. So can you optimize those? I think we'll have to start looking into it. Then very important, I think we need to move into those what is called as advanced machinery, those which can do what is called as additive manufacturing, very popularly called as 3D printing. It's been extensively used in various companies, but I think all of you will have to start relooking into it. Can my process entirely be redesigned? We need to do what is called as a BPR, a business process reengineering of your process. Simple exercise, get all the few people, 5 to 6 people of a textile, assuming cement manufacturing, assuming garment manufacturing, or for the matter, agriculture commodity, whatever may be, come together, sit, brainstorm, try to understand what is going on in the best practices, because nobody can actually help you out better than yourself. Understand what is the global practices, see whether can you bring it together. Additive manufacturing can be there, virtual reality, your drone, autonomous transport, all the Internet of Things, IoT, that's going to be a sensor driven market. Can all of these change the way manufacturing is going through? Correct? So a whole lot of these resources are available online. You just have to put in your efforts, and this is called as Industry 4.0. Probably reinvest into it. Next comes the people related strategy. The people related strategy, please keep in mind, social distancing is going to be the need of the hour. Try to have your shop floors with plastic slides, try to have separators, and these are going to be low cost innovation solutions. Try to have non-support functions, probably still continue to work from home. For example, your marketing, your HR, your designing, your architect, all these folks can still continue to work from home to a large extent. To a large extent, I understand every business has its own peculiarities. You need to train people. This is the best time. What if you do not feel that my staff is working only for 4 hours or 5 hours? What do I do for the rest of the hours? I think you need to push in trainings. There are a whole lot of these training modules available for free. Whatever work you're doing, trying to learn a new machinery, trying to learn operate a new thing, trying to strategize, bringing in innovation, all of these are necessary. Probably bring in tools where you can monitor remotely. This will ensure that you're maintaining your social distancing, trying to use through your CCTV camera, image recognition, trying to understand what's going on. There are a whole lot of technology solutions available for that. And our Honorable Prime Minister has clearly said, vocal for local. I think those folks who are going to be a local products, local consumer goods, I think it's time you actually gear up, because there is going to be in the next few days, months, years, the need for localization and local products are going to become more demanding than that of the international products. And of course, the local product standards are also substantially increasing. Innovation has become the mantra. Next is a very important thing, probably one key lesson: collaboration. Try to merge, try to enter into joint development agreements, not just on the real estate joint development agreements. For those of you who are aware, try to see whether can I manufacture A, you manufacture B, can we sell it together as C? No, our costs are getting optimized. Can my supply chain get integrated, backward, forward chain, supply chain, integrate them? Can I look into sector specific issues? Try to develop web portals, group for making representations, identify challenges. Whole lot of these things are possible, and that's on the collaboration side. Try to gear up for newer products and newer markets post-COVID. This is something very critical. Assume a scenario where the whole world, for various reasons, stops trading with few countries. Would that mean bigger opportunities for India? The answer is yes. If that is the case, are we ready to meet them? Forget that. Let's take another scenario. Larger companies who are planning to shift their base to India, now they have smaller concerns. Will I get raw material? Will I get components? Will I get the required support? I think it's time we actually invest into it. So assuming if a XYZ technology giant is going to come into India, he's going to manufacture smartphones, then do I have the resources to actually get started? Can I probably be a pioneer into that? These are all interesting things. And try to look into alternative for imported goods, because over a point in time, the Swadeshi movement is going to come back to India. Right? So these are all things, and these are all things which are going to trigger the way business is going to be run. Social distancing, I told you, this is something which is going to be crucial. A few thoughts on social distancing, how workplace could probably look like. A manufacturing gets set up, you need to ensure that your employees are, adequately protected. At the same time, there is adequate space in between your workforce. Whichever is your common space, ensure each of them have these separate cubicles or a separate protected area so that they are restricted. And you have your CCTV cameras, you have these probably can do those temperature checks, try to rate non-usable dishes at cafeteria. A whole lot of these things probably has to be relooked into it. If you're looking into office environment, see whether you can probably distance people, try to keep lines, sanitize, cleanse them, and all these have become necessity, and you have to live with this. Look into these retail environment. Of course, again, you need to have multiple shifts. Can I bring in more cleanliness? Can I change the timings? And these are all things which you have to look into it. So these are a few sample cases on how you should probably be looking into these areas. The next mantra which I'll probably take before I give it to my co-panelist is, how do I bring in the innovation? And we are a country where we were able to send a mission Chandrayaan, the Mars orbiter mission Mangalyaan at such a cheap cost, or such a affordable pricing method, that the entire world is actually looking into us. Can I bring in that sort of an innovation into my setup? Correct. Textile manufacturing can probably start off with masks, gloves, aprons, a whole lot of these things. Hyper localization is going to be the new trend. Logistics are going to be redefined. Entertainment are all going to be relooked into. So a few sample use cases of innovation amongst COVID-19, probably you will find it over here. Now quickly to give an example, Lyft is a company which is a US based company. They were a ride sharing company. Today they're actually delivering essentials. Trump's is a Bangalore based company who was into textile manufacturing. He's fully diversified and he's actually manufacturing masks, apparel and things like that. Cult, which we all have heard of, now is bringing fitness to home. Netflix has brought something called as party from home entertainment, where you can share your screen and chat with your friends, at the same time watch movie together. And these are all few cases where innovation is being coming into picture. So the real question is, what are the new business trends post COVID-19? We are going into a world which is going to be a DIY world, do it yourself world. Any product today, probably if you are able to convince the consumer that I am going to give you one part of the product, why don't you yourself do it? He would actually come forward and be willing to. Correct? So gone are the days where if I want the tastiest of the dish, I need to go to a restaurant. Today, I don't think that's going to happen. People are scared, people are skeptical. So can I bring a DIY, do it yourself model, right from your training, right from cooking, right from the way work is done, right from your stand, whatever you can call it, any product which you're going to prepare, a DIY your product sort of a thing is going to sell in the market. Hyper localization. I trust my Kirana store who's close by because he was the guy who supported me during COVID-19. See, can we engage them to become a larger player into business? There's going to be a growth, significant growth in health and wellness market. So probably see whether you can try to tap those areas. Touchless, contactless systems are going to increase because nobody wants to touch today, and we all have understood that. Digital driven solutions, digital driven experiences. It could be even watching a movie, a virtual reality, and all these things are going to become the reality. And last but not the least, you're going to have alternate financing evolving very soon. Correct. And when I use the word alternate financing, we are referring to financing options other than those which are being conventional, those which, which is based on your net worth. I will give you the loan based on assets, which I'm going to give you the loan. No, supply chain financing is going to come up. Let me just give you one small use case before I hand it over to the next speaker. Let's say you're talking about a bill discounting. That particular bill is discounted, let's presume 10,000 rupees plus GST. Now imagine a setup where this bill is discounted on the due date. 30% or 40% goes directly to your raw materials. So we know that this money goes to the XYZ, who are your listed vendors. 20 to 30% goes towards, or 40% goes towards wages. So therefore it gets credited to your account or employee specific account. 10% goes towards a discretionary spend. It comes into your bank account, and that 18% automatically gets transferred to the government. We're talking about a setup like this, which will very soon be possible. And we're talking about technologies like blockchain, which is going to come up into finance. And these are going to be a whole lot of innovation. Second, bill discounting. RBI has come up with what is called as a trade platform, correct? Something which you have to go ahead and explore. A whole lot of these opportunities. Supply chain financing is one wonderful avenue where financing is possible. Transaction-based financing are very important. This is where I said tomorrow's financing methodology is not going to be based upon your past asset. It's going to be in the pattern in which you're going to deposit cash or collect cash. Many of these MSMEs are actually collecting, if you still feel that cash based mechanism is going to work, that is going to be history. So you need to have a digitized based method. More and more you bring in digital payments, more and more you bring in digital transactions. Based on your pattern of transactions, based on your transaction history, you would actually be able to finish it. And last but not the least is factoring, where bill discounting and these things are going to come into picture. So yes, these are what I call it as the business trends post-COVID, and these is basically what is going to catch up. And to speak more on these alternate financings, etc., I think I have my speaker, co-panelist, who will be taking it, and I'll be happy to take your questions probably a little towards the end, because we'll have to finish both the speakers and we'll be open for questions. Over to you, Vignesh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Narasimhan, for that wonderful presentation.